What if one of the most powerful things you could eat for your brain, your heart, and your aging body was already sitting in your kitchen and cost less than a cup of coffee? No prescription, no exotic superfood label, no complicated preparation, just a small handful of something that looks, almost suspiciously, like a tiny human brain. If you're over 40 and you're not eating walnuts regularly, or you're not eating enough of them, what you're about to hear might genuinely change that. Because the research on walnuts and aging is not just impressive, it's some of the most consistent evidence we have for any single whole food. Let's get into it. Welcome back. Whether you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, this video is built around one central question: what actually happens inside your body when you eat walnuts consistently over time? Not marketing claims, not supplement industry hype. We're talking about peer-reviewed research from institutions like Harvard, UCLA, and the University of Barcelona, and we're going to break it down in plain language. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what walnuts do for your brain, your cardiovascular system, your inflammation levels, your gut, and your hormones. And you'll have a clear, simple protocol for how to actually use them. Let's start with the organ that arguably matters most after 40. Part 1. Walnuts and your brain. The cognitive protection you need to know about. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Cognitive decline doesn't start at 70. Brain volume begins to shrink measurably after age 40, slowly at first, then faster with each decade. But here's where walnuts become remarkable. Walnuts are the only tree nut that contains a significant amount of alpha-linolenic acid ALA, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid that crosses the blood-brain barrier and supports the structure and function of brain cells. A landmark study published in the journal Nutrients followed over 4,800 adults and found that regular walnut consumers performed significantly better on cognitive tests, including memory, processing speed, and mental flexibility, compared to non-consumers. The benefit was most pronounced in adults over 60, who started from a lower dietary quality baseline. And it's not just omega-3s doing the work. Walnuts are packed with polyphenols and vitamin E, both potent antioxidants that reduce oxidative stress in the brain. Oxidative stress is one of the primary drivers of neuronal damage and age-related cognitive decline. A UCLA study led by Dr. Lenore Arab found that walnut consumption was associated with significantly higher cognitive scores across all age groups. But again, the effect was strongest in the 40 and over group. One of the most striking findings came from the WAHA trial, Walnuts and Healthy Aging, a 2-year randomized controlled trial, which found that daily walnut consumption reduced inflammatory markers in the brain and was associated with slower cognitive aging. The bottom line, your brain is losing ground after 40. Walnuts are one of the very few foods with strong, repeated evidence that they help slow that process. Part 2. Walnuts and your heart. A cardiovascular case that's hard to ignore. Heart disease remains the #1 killer of adults globally, and after 40, cardiovascular risk begins to rise, quietly, often without symptoms, driven by inflammation, cholesterol imbalance, and arterial stiffness. Walnuts address all three. On cholesterol, multiple clinical trials have shown that eating walnuts daily reduces LDL cholesterol, the harmful kind, by 9 to 16%, and improves the overall LDL to HDL ratio. The unsaturated fats in walnuts, particularly ALA and linoleic acid, replace saturated fat at the cellular level in arterial walls. On inflammation, walnuts contain L-glutathione, a class of polyphenols, converted by gut bacteria into a compound called urolithin A. Urolithin A has demonstrated powerful anti-inflammatory and cardioprotective effects in human trials, and its production depends heavily on the health of your gut microbiome. More on that shortly. On arterial function, a study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that replacing saturated fat with walnuts in the diet significantly improved endothelial function, essentially how well your arteries dilate and respond to blood flow, within just 8 weeks. The American Heart Association recognizes walnuts as a heart-healthy food, but the research now goes well beyond a stamp of approval. It points to specific, measurable cardiovascular benefits at a dose that's entirely practical for everyday life. Part 3. Walnuts and inflammation. The silent fire after 40. Chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging, is now understood to be a root driver of nearly every major age-related disease: cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, certain cancers, and even depression. After 40, inflammatory markers like CRP, C-reactive protein, and IL-6 tend to rise, particularly in people with poor diet quality, high stress, or sedentary lifestyles. Walnuts are one of the most anti-inflammatory whole foods we have access to. Their combination of ALA omega-3s, polyphenols, magnesium, and vitamin E works synergistically to suppress inflammatory pathways. A randomized crossover trial published in the Journal of Nutrition found that a walnut-enriched diet reduced CRP levels by over 10% within 2 months, without any other dietary changes. That's meaningful. CRP reduction at that scale is associated with measurable reductions in cardiovascular and metabolic risk. Part 4. Walnuts in your gut. The microbiome connection nobody's talking about. Here's one of the most exciting and underreported areas of walnut research. Your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your intestines, plays a direct role in immune function, mood regulation, weight management, and systemic inflammation. And after 40, gut diversity naturally declines. Walnuts act as a prebiotic. They feed and diversify the beneficial bacteria in your gut. A 2020 study from the University of Illinois found that adults who ate walnuts daily for 8 weeks had significantly higher levels of beneficial gut bacteria, including lactobacillus, roseburia, and butyriccoccus, all associated with reduced inflammation and improved gut barrier integrity. This gut-walnut connection may actually explain many of walnuts' broader health benefits. When your microbiome is healthier, everything downstream, from inflammation to mood to hormone balance, improves. Part 5. Walnuts and sleep, stress, and hormones. 3 things that quietly deteriorate after 40: sleep quality, stress resilience, and hormonal balance. Walnuts have a measurable role in all 3. Sleep. Walnuts are one of the few whole foods that contain melatonin, the hormone that regulates your sleep-wake cycle. Consuming walnuts in the evening has been shown to increase blood melatonin levels, potentially improving sleep onset and quality. Stress. The magnesium in walnuts, with roughly 45 mg per ounce, supports the regulation of cortisol, your primary stress hormone. Magnesium deficiency is strongly linked to anxiety and poor stress response. An estimate suggests that over 50% of adults in developed countries are deficient. Hormones. For men specifically, research suggests that the zinc and healthy fats in walnuts support healthy testosterone levels, a hormone that declines roughly 1% per year after age 30. For women, the anti-inflammatory and phytoestrogen activity of walnut polyphenols may offer some support during perimenopause and menopause. These aren't miracle claims, but the convergence of mechanisms is compelling. Part 6. How much, when, and how. The practical protocol. Here's what the research actually used as effective doses. The optimal amount. Most studies showing significant benefits used 28 to 42 grams per day. That's roughly 7 to 14. Walnut halves, or about 1 to 1.5 small handfuls. You don't need more than that. Walnuts are calorie-dense, around 185 calories per ounce, so going significantly over the research. Dose adds calories without proportionally more benefit. When to eat them. Morning adds healthy fats and protein to breakfast. Blunts. Blood sugar spikes from carbohydrates. Midday snack replaces ultra-processed snacks with a food that actually supports brain function. Evening leverages the natural melatonin content for better sleep onset. How to eat them. Raw or lightly toasted is best. Heavy roasting and added salt or sugar reduce the polyphenol content and add unnecessary calories. Storing walnuts in the fridge or freezer preserves their omega-3 content and prevents rancidity. Rancid walnuts have a bitter taste and provide significantly less benefit. Start here. If you want to act on everything in this video, here's the simplest possible version. Eat 1 small handful of raw walnuts, about 7 to 10 halves, every day. That's it. Put them in your breakfast, carry them as a snack, add them to a salad at lunch. The delivery method doesn't matter nearly as much as the consistency. The benefits: cognitive protection, cardiovascular support, reduced inflammation, better gut diversity, improved sleep are not the result of one dramatic dose. They're the result of daily, consistent intake over weeks and months. Small habit, significant return, a handful a day. That's the prescription. If this video gave you something useful, please hit the like button. It helps people in their 40s and 50s find evidence-based content when they need it most. Subscribe for more science-backed health content built around the realities of life after 40. And leave a comment. Do you eat walnuts regularly? Or are you starting today? I'd love to know. See you in the next one.